recently got his buffies and some ability reworks in Brawl Stars, so here's a full guide on how to use him. Now I'll be covering Edgar's mechanics and how he works, the best build that you need to use for him, and the best game modes and gameplay tips for the scarf looking brawler. And yeah, make sure to like and subscribe because I'm on my way to 200,000 subscribers, okay? Now before I show you the best build for Edgar, you first need to understand how he works and his mechanics. So yeah, let's start with Edgar's main attack, Fight Club. Not gonna lie, it is a pretty straightforward attack. Edgar pretty much hits enemies with quick punches with his scarf, and he also heals himself for each landed punch. And each ammo hits 2 quick punches, by the way. At power 11, Edgar does 1080 damage per punch, so per ammo, he does 2160 damage, which is insane. His reload speed is also really fast, so you can spam auto aim his attack if you wanted to, and he gets a nice 35% healing from the damage he does. Edgar's main attack does have a short range though, so you have to be pretty close up to the enemies if you want to land his attack. Alright, moving on to Edgar's super vault. Edgar basically hella premises and jumps to the area you target with his super. After he lands, he gets a temporary speed boost, so if you let's say use a super on an enemy running away, that temporary speed boost will help you catch up to that enemy and you can whack them out of existence. And you can do even more damage with this super using this crazy Edgar build, which I will break down later in the video. But yeah, if you thought that this was it, there is more. Edgar can actually charge his super over time along with his hypercharge, so you can literally just camp behind a wall or in a bush and patiently wait for his super to charge. Edgar also has 7,400 health at the max level, and of course he has a very fast movement speed as well. Overall, Edgar is probably one of the best assassins in the game right now. His mechanics are very simple but effective at the same time. Now, if you've played Edgar recently, you probably know that he's completely breaking the game right now. It's not even funny, but in order to understand why he's breaking the game, we need to take a look at his updated abilities and new buffies. Edgar's first gadget, Let's Fly, is pretty cool. His scarf pretty much grabs the closest brawler and he ends up jumping behind them. It is an aimable gadget that can also pull Edgar towards a wall as well, and he can also jump over the walls as well. And with the gadget buffy, Edgar gets a 25% speed boost for 2.5 seconds, and that is when you end up grabbing a brawler or a wall with this gadget. So basically, you can use this aimable gadget to sort of jump towards an enemy, or if an enemy is behind a wall, you can aim the gadget towards a wall and jump over it and just whack the enemy out of existence. And this gadget has a 14-second cooldown, which is pretty solid. Edgar's second gadget, Hardcore, pretty much gives him a shield that protects him from 3,700 damage. The shield does get weaker over time, so you really need to use it wisely, like when playing aggro and pushing into enemies. With Edgar's gadget buffy, his gadget allows him to get immunity to crowd control for 1 second. So if you were to use this shield and a Frank ends up supering you, the super won't stun you thanks to the good old buffy. This gadget is also great defensively if you're low in health, but better offensively if you're playing aggro against enemies. And yeah, this gadget has a 17-second cooldown. Edgar's first star power, Hard Landing, is pretty interesting. It basically allows his super and his Let's Fly gadget to deal 1,490 damage to nearby enemies when landing, or 2,490 damage on a direct hit. So this star power is strongly connected to the Let's Fly gadget, and it pretty much allows Edgar to deal even more damage. And with Edgar's star power buffy, if you manage to land a direct hit, Edgar's super will charge by 25%. So on top of the 2,490 damage you do from the direct hit, you will also charge up 25% of Edgar's super. Edgar charges his super really fast, by the way, so you'll basically be able to cycle to another super depending on how many attacks you hit. Edgar's second star power, Fisticuffs, allows him to receive 30% more healing from the damage he deals, and with the star power buffy, if you take down a brawler, Edgar will instantly heal for 30% of his max health. This star power pretty much allows you to constantly play aggro depending on how many enemies you manage to eliminate. The extra healing will pretty much prevent you from getting eliminated. Edgar's hypercharge is pretty simple, but extremely effective. When the hypercharge is activated and you use Edgar's super, you'll have a very fast reload speed along with a fast charging speed for a few seconds. With Edgar's hyper buffy, his hypercharge becomes insane, dude. Edgar's main attack will now have 2 extra scarf punches that have some crazy range. Now, obviously, the 2 extra scarf punches do 50% less damage. Otherwise, this brawler would be way too broken. With the buffy, the hypercharge also lasts for an extra 2 seconds as well. So if you use your hyper super combo with Edgar and an enemy is a bit far away, the extra range can really help with eliminating them. You'll obviously do 50% less damage, but you already have an extremely fast reload speed thanks to the hypercharge, so you'll be able to spam your attacks like crazy and do some insane damage. And yeah, if you've made it this far into the video, comment your thoughts on Edgar's buffies. But yeah, now that you know how Edgar's abilities and buffies work, it is now time for me to show you the greatest Edgar build in the history of scarves. What does that even mean, bro? Now, this build is crazy, and you can really leverage Edgar's mechanics to the max and get some insane value from this brawler. But yeah, starting with the gadget, I decided to choose a Let's Fly gadget. I found this gadget to be very beneficial, and you can use it in aggro scenarios. Like if you're playing in maps with a lot of walls, for example, you can take advantage and jump over the walls using this gadget. Once you land near an enemy, the buffy will give you a 25% speed boost, which allows you to catch up to the enemy and whack them out of existence. On top of that, Edgar heals every time he attacks, so it gets pretty difficult to get eliminated thanks to his good old healing. Now, obviously for the star power, I decided to choose a hard landing star power. This is because the star power is basically paired with the Let's Fly gadget. It allows the Let's Fly gadget to do damage if you land on an enemy, and if it's a direct hit, you do a crazy amount of damage and also charge your super by 25%. This star power also works with Edgar's super, and as you guys know, it's really easy to charge up Edgar's super, so this star power will provide a lot of value, especially when you're spamming your super. But yeah, for the first gear, I decided to go with the shield gear. I think that the extra health is very necessary for Edgar, especially because of the fact that you're going to be jumping in constantly and playing aggro against enemies. At power 11, Edgar has 7,400 health, so with the shield gear, he will now have 8,300 health, which is extremely good for an assassin brawler. For the second gear, I decided to choose the damage gear. Like I mentioned before, you're going to be constantly playing aggro with Edgar, therefore you might be low in health in a lot of scenarios. And this is where the good old damage gear comes in clutch. When below 50% health, Edgar will deal 15% more damage, which can potentially lead to more eliminations, and this build isn't complete without Edgar's hypercharge. His hypercharge really comes in clutch, and it just does so much damage. With the hyper buffy, Edgar does lose 50% of the damage, but in exchange, he gets 2 extra scarf punches along with some extra range, which is a pretty good trade-off in my opinion. Like the extra range that you end up getting, it is just insane, dude. Now that you know the best build for Edgar, it is extremely important to know which game modes he's best in and also some gameplay tips overall. Knowing the best game modes for Edgar can help you with drafting in ranked and trophy pushing overall. Now, to be honest with you, Edgar is great in every single one of the main game modes. This includes Brawl Ball, Gem Grab, Heist, Hot Zone, Knockout, Bounty, and even Solo Showdown. I personally played most of my Edgar games in Brawl Ball because that's my go-to game mode. I think he's a really good pick in Brawl Ball because it's just so easy to spam your super and use it. And thanks to the Let's Fly gadget paired with the hard landing star power, you're able to jump on enemies and deal a crazy amount of damage simply by using Edgar's gadget. It is really easy to use Edgar. You can even get away with spam auto aiming enemies, but you really have to be strategic sometimes and know where to jump next. You're going to be charging your super very fast when playing aggro, so you really have to think fast on where you'll use your super next. For example, if I'm low in health, I would use my super and jump away from the fight and heal up, and this tip really applies to any game mode you're playing in. For game modes like Gem Grab and Hot Zone, Edgar is great at controlling certain areas of the map. For example, if your team lost control of the Hot Zone point or the center of the Gem Grab map, you can easily get a guaranteed elimination if you manage to super the correct enemy, and if you have your hypercharged super combo, then it's a completely different story. The last thing that you want to do though is super the entire team and get 3v1 unless your team is with you. As long as you're strategically using your super, you can easily regain control of Hot Zone points and the center of the Gem Grab map. As for Knockout and Bounty, you can easily win in these game modes by playing passively with Edgar. Edgar can charge both his super and hypercharge passively, so in Knockout and Bounty, all you have to do is wait for his super, jump on an enemy, and whack them out of existence. It is that easy, dude. And don't even get me started with Heist. Edgar's super really comes in clutch. Just jump onto the Heist save and scarf away. Edgar is even good in Solo Showdown, and that's really because it's easy to charge his super. I don't usually recommend playing Solo Showdown for most of my brawler guides, but Edgar is just one of those brawlers who's versatile and great in any game mode. And one of the main reasons is because of his super traits and how you can passively charge it. But yeah, if you enjoyed this video, click on this video to see a full guide on how to use Clancy in Brawl Stars.